Final Fantasy XV Episode Ignis marks the end to the game's long DLC roadmap. It's the final slice of content. For this year anyways. Of the DLC on this season pass, Episode Ignis is definitely the best one besides Comrades. But at this point I feel like I'm repeating the same complaint every time. Everything new about this DLC adds something that's better than the main game, but it's still held back by the fact that it's attached to Final Fantasy XV. I will say this though, Episode Ignis is the first bit of DLC that genuinely feels like it was meant to be played after beating the game. For one, it outright spoils the ending of the game, and recontextualizes certain scenes in doing so. It also features an alternate ending that goes on to spoil even more of the story. Despite taking place roughly during the middle of the game, Episode Ignis is definitely post-game content. Now, honestly, all of the DLC has felt like it could be more than what it was, but it's uncanny with Episode Ignis. The game starts by giving you a massive open world section and a grappling hook that lets you explore freely, but there is literally nothing of value to this segment. There's this weird mechanic where enemies can take over districts of the town, and beating all of them will free the district. There's even a dedicated feature that shows you a map of who controls what, but it means literally nothing. You gain nothing by doing this. Enemies don't even give EXP, so I mean it when I say there's no benefit. The only thing you can do in this segment is collect a bunch of random junk scattered throughout the town, which in turn can be sold at shops for money to buy new glasses for Ignis to wear, or stock up on healing items. There's one other thing you can buy, a special ability where you cook a meal to gain temporary status buffs. You only unlock the ability to buy this after you beat the DLC, however. The really bizarre thing about this DLC is that once you make a tiny bit of story progress, your grappling hook is taken away from you, and thus you lose all your exploration options. It honestly baffles me. Why bother going through the trouble to make a mechanic if you're not going to use it for anything? Luckily the DLC has some other gimmicks, but a lot of gameplay sequences are one and done affairs, even though they seem like they're going to be expanded upon. In yet another attempt to wring some good gameplay out of Final Fantasy XV's engine, Ignis can switch between 3 distinct weapons. They're all daggers, but they each have a different elemental affinity and attack pattern. Fire is for single targets, Blizzard is for area of effect, and Thunder makes you zoom around like crazy. Ignis can also use techniques like in the main game, either powering up his basic dagger strikes or doing a powerful jump attack. His big gimmick, however, is his focus gauge. It'll fill on its own by doing certain things during combat, but you can also hold down the focus button to fill up the gauge manually. Once full, you can press the button again to do a special move. There's a unique one for each of the 3 dagger types. Honestly, there's nothing super flashy going on here, but Ignis has all his combat fundamentals accounted for. You can even launch projectiles using the fire daggers. It gets even better in that the enemies really flinch this time. Hitting enemies feels closer to good in this DLC than ever before. Besides that, the DLC is really story heavy. Lots of pretty scenes, some character moments and explanations, but honestly, looking back on all the DLC now, it's really highlighted how weak of a narrative Final Fantasy XV really is. There are no big reveals about Ignis here. Why is he so dedicated to Noctis? He just is. Who is he? Some guy. The characters of Final Fantasy XV, beyond their surface level, are really nothing. In a way, expanding on Final Fantasy XV's story was a mistake, because it's revealing that there's not a whole lot left to say. Hopefully the new DLC continues the trend of improving the combat. The next episode is supposed to follow the game's villain Arden, and he's goofy and fun to see, but there isn't a whole lot left to go into regarding his backstory that hasn't already been said. Oh, and I gotta say, with Episode Gladio and Episode Prompto, you got notable new outfits as rewards for the DLC. There was Shirtless Gladio and Snowsuit Prompto. Ignis in this DLC has a new look with his hair down, but the outfit you get in the main game doesn't keep that. As a result, the special outfit you get is nearly identical to the one you start the game off with. It's pretty lame. There's not much else to say. The bonus fight against Noctis is neat conceptually but obnoxious in practice, and the whole DLC, but especially the grappling hook, is really buggy. But there's a deeper issue than that, involving the free update that came to the main game alongside this DLC. It gives you the character swap ability, which lets you experience the gameplay styles of all 3 DLC characters. The best part of each DLC is these characters' gameplay, so in a way this update really reduced the value of the DLC retroactively.